Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's My Games Recruitment Show, where, as you can see, we're going to be talking about working in the Middle East and how to create a layered recruitment firm. Now, to do that, we have a very special guest, and to invite that guest onto the show, we have the very special Mike Ames. How are you doing today, Mike?
When you say special, I don't know what you mean by that. I can't help but think there's just a little bit of a dig. I don't know.
I'm not responsible for how you take my messages. What you infer from my statements is not my fault.
Well, I am special anyway, in my own lunchtime anyway. Yeah, I wanted to get Justin on the show. Welcome, Justin, by the way. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks a lot. Nice to be here.
He says that now. In 45 minutes, he might not be saying that. But I wanted to come on the show. Justin's been a client for a year and a half or something, 2 years, yeah. I can't remember now. And done some great things. But what I really like about him is two things. First of all, he's a man who's had a journey. He says yes more times than he says no, right? And when it comes to doing stuff, he just does it. A lot of people I talk to procrastinate way too much, and Justin doesn't. It's like, well, we'll do that then. And we do it. And I love that. And I think part of his success comes from that. Now, Justin, you are the founder and CEO of MCG Talent, and you're based in Dubai, but you operate in Hong Kong, Singapore, and United Arab Emirates. That's correct, isn't it?
One more to add to that, Mike. It's the latest, the new kid on the block, Saudi Arabia. We've got a license there now as well.
Okay. Yeah, I was just behind the times, mate. Just, listening to it. Now, I'd like to just start this off just by kind of use your story really as the backdrop for everything we're going to talk about. By the way, we're going to drill into working abroad, particularly in the Middle East, kind of how that works, what you've got to do. We're certainly going to look at that. We're then going to look at switching across from 360 to layered, which had a big effect on Justin's business. And then we're also going to talk about offshore, because Justin is king of the offshores. And I learned only a few moments ago, is also now not only operating in Sri Lanka, but also South Africa. So more of that a little later. But the story starts. I'm going to add a little extra colour to this, I think. So it's a rainy...
By the way, just whilst Mike is about to do this, if you have any questions for Justin as we go through, he's been very gracious and said he'll answer almost anything, almost being the operative word. So pop them in the comments and I'll bring them up to him as we go through.
While I'm just setting the scene, actually, for Justin's journey, just tell me in the comments what you're most interested in. Is it offshore? Is it layered? Or is it Middle East? That'll do. Right. So
that's Far East. Let's add that in as well.
Oh, obviously, yeah. Go for it. Right, so it's a Thursday afternoon in London. It's raining and it's cold and it's bleak. And a young, keen, good-looking, slim, fit, healthy, probably taken that too far, Justin Maguire is sitting in his little office in a marketing agency thinking, there's more to life than this. What happened then?
That's a very good question. So it was pretty much like that, actually. So I worked in Farringdon. I worked in this fantastic communications agency. I'd been there for, 6.5 years at this point. And I'd risen through the ranks, doing really, really well there. I was in my early 20s. But unfortunately, I'd lost my father a couple of years before that, which I thought I'd handled. But actually, I think 2 years later, I sort of started up thinking about him a lot. I started looking at the people in the agency that I was working in and looking at them thinking they were, the people that were 5, 6, 7, 8 years ahead of me, thinking, do I want to be those people? And I could not get it out of my head. I did not want to be those people. So I actually woke up one morning and decided to resign. I decided I had to leave. And I decided the only way...
It's not Justin Maguire.
And I did. I walked in and I resigned. And my boss, who'd been a tremendous mentor and still is to this day, said, well, what are you doing? Where are you going? I said, look, I haven't made any plans. I'm not going to any competitor, but I'm going to leave the country. I'm going to go somewhere else. And one thing you might not know, Mike, is that I was born in America, but I grew up in Spain for 6 years before moving to the UK. And so I had quite a good basic knowledge of Spanish that only came out after a few beers, typically, but it was there, right?
Oh, muy bien.
Un grande cerveza, por favor. Basically, I decided I wanted to check out Latin America. So I looked at charities. I decided I want to do something that was where I was working with a charity. I looked into this, and there was a UN charity that worked across Central America and South America. Literally spun a map of the world, stuck my finger on Honduras. Next thing I know, I've resigned in September. I'm on a flight to Honduras in Central America in January. I spent a year there where I taught kids English, which was a tremendous experience. I never taught in my life. First day, the teacher said to me, what have you taught before? And I said, well, he clearly hadn't looked at my CV, because I said, I don't know. What do you want me to do? And then he said, go and teach them the numbers. So that's what I did. And it started from that. And I literally taught kids Spanish in Central America for a year, which was tremendous. Came back a year later, decided I wasn't going to go into communications. I knew a couple of people working in recruitment. I then went through an experience of looking for a job in communications and realized no one, a recruiter I spoke to, understood digital comms, which I was in before. So that was my niche. I decided I was going to be a recruiter in the digital comms space. I couldn't find an agency that understood what that was in 2007. So I literally went knocking on the door of recruitment companies and then found this banking recruitment business who decided to back me, and we joined forces and set up this recruitment business that looked after communications and comms people in London.
So can I just stop you right there? So did I hear that correctly, that you set up a recruitment company, never done recruitment? You've never done it?
Yeah, I set up a division of this person's recruitment. So they were investment banking recruitment business, and then there was me and jeans and t-shirt that did communications. Very weird setup. It was opposite the Bank of England. There was a knight in shining armor as you walked through. So they were moving investment bankers, and I was moving media and marketing professionals. And it went very well, actually. And it was a not particularly competitive market in those days. There was some major players in London who I was coming up against quite a bit, but not many other people. So did very well in that. And then, of course, the financial crisis rocked up in London in 2008. And I thought London did not look like it was the best place to be. There's Lehman Brothers, people leaving their offices in boxes, etc. So put myself out there, and next thing I know, I got a job offer from a business in Dubai, and thought, well, if I've done Honduras, and by the way, I didn't tell you, in Honduras, I found out after I got there, it was the second highest murder rate in the world.
Great stuff. Great.
I had a gun put to my head there. So, if I could get through that, moving to Dubai would not be a problem at all. And I basically accepted the job. I got offered a job out in Dubai. Next thing I know, I was out there. I landed in September. I thought everyone in Dubai said there was going to be no recession. I think I packed it in my suitcase and put it in the aeroplane, because when the wheels touched the ground, Dubai did not have a pretty journey. I saw it kind of, people were in denial for about 2 weeks when I was here. And then all the cars started getting dumped at the airport. It was pretty messy, to be honest with you. But I paid, in those days, you could only pay 1 year in advance for your rent. So I paid 1 year in advance for my rent. I lost the job. Everyone had kind of gone. I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I decided, weirdly enough, as I was in Dubai, I wasn't too far from Thailand. I decided to go and see my mate Nick, who had a dive school. I went and helped him out diving. And there I basically came up with the idea of the business we have now, MCG Talent, where I realized that because everyone had left because of the financial crisis, and when Abu Dhabi bailed to buy out some money, that there really wasn't a lot of people doing what I'd done in London in Dubai. In fact, I could be the first niche specialist marketing, communications, creative and digital recruiter in the region. So I came up with this idea in Koh Tao in Thailand, came back to Dubai and went to register the company, realized that it was extremely hard to register a company. Back in those days, you had to be in business with a local. Now you can do it online, and I'll talk about that a bit later. But realized, number one, it was very hard to set up a business here. Number two, everyone had left. Like, there was not a lot of candidates here in the communication and digital space. So I could get a lot of customers, but I couldn't get a lot of candidates. But fortuitously, my old job came back to really sort of help me out here. So I moved back to London for basically, I was going backwards and forwards between London and Dubai for 2 years. I was meeting candidates in London and then sending them out to Dubai for jobs. And I basically was relocating 5 people a month that way. And it was pretty much all from my little black book that I'd accrued from my 7 years working in the industry and my sort of 18 months working in recruitment. LinkedIn hadn't really taken its grip then, and I realized that my background of working in London combined with my knowledge of the Middle East was completely bespoke. There wasn't many people that had that. And so I was able to, and the fact that I worked in the industry, no customers in Dubai could believe I knew what advertising was, that I knew what communications was, because I'd been in the job. So what turned into a disaster when I arrived in Dubai with, the job not being right, the recession arriving here, everyone leaving, turned into actually being the best thing that happened, because Dubai got bailed out very quickly and I was left as this niche provider here. And I rode that wave for about 5 years.
Now, that is a story so far, and we're only 8 minutes in, but wow.
Like this.
Yeah. I'm going to watch this again later with a cup of tea and a biscuit. But just go back. A couple of questions I wanted to ask you. Now, Next, I want to talk to you about the actual mechanics of setting up in the Middle East. We'll go with Dubai because I know it's different in different places.
Yeah.
But we'll zero in on that and then explain to people kind of how that works. But before we do that, 2 things that you said struck a chord with me. One was niche. This niche. I'm just going to do that. And how any regular listeners to the show will know that I'm very, very keen on niche. I think the less you do, the more successful you will be. So the first question is, how relevant do you think it was having a niche in Dubs when you were first starting out there? Is that a big deal, or what do you reckon?
Niche has been my I swear by, I live and breathe by it. Is obviously I started my career in communications, and let's put the teaching gear to one side. I'm a passionate communicator. I'm a passionate marketeer. I really enjoy the industry, and I loved actually the fact that I found a job where I could still be connected to the communications world, but this time I was just finding people jobs within it. So that's why I think when things went pretty well in the UK, and then that's why when I came over here to the Middle East, there wasn't anyone like me. There wasn't anyone that had worked in the industry and then was accruing this knowledge of this part of the world that not many people understood. So the niche element absolutely served me tremendously well. It gave me automatic buy-in with customers, and it gave me automatic buy-in with candidates. And when I moved over to London to try and get candidates to move to the Middle East, obviously I was the only person doing that. Let's not forget, at the time in the UK, good quality candidates, this was still, they were in competitive markets or being wanted by a lot of UK businesses. I was coming to them saying, hey, do you want to go out there and be like the first head of digital for this global agency out in Dubai? And I was giving them a job that was completely different. So I really leveraged off my niche USP there. And that is how I think my mantra really is, I've always enjoyed being a big fish in a smaller pond as a result of that experience of going out there.
Yeah, having worked on the inside of your business, I can see how that worked. I mean, it's really very successful. Let's move on to setting up then now in Dubai.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had to jump through lots of hoops in the past, but you say it's a little easier now. Can you talk through people, if they wanted to set up now, what should they be doing?
Yeah, so just to give you an idea, there's 2 ways you can open up a business in Dubai. You can have a free zone entity, or you can have an onshore entity. Now, a free zone entity means ultimately it's 100% owned business, that owned by you, that operates within the jurisdiction of a particular free zone. So you might have heard things like Media City in Dubai, Dubai International Financial Center. They're 2 quite well-known free zones. You can open up a business within there and you 100% own it, but your office and registration is governed by that particular free zone and is based there. The other one is an onshore business. That's what I've got. That's where you traditionally went in you had a 51% ownership with a local, and then you went to the courts and he signed away his rights. So basically on paper, that person was in charge of the business, but you had all the money, all the banking power, everything. That is how a lot of businesses traditionally set up here. And governments typically preferred doing businesses with onshore businesses because it was guaranteed to be working with an Emirati. So I decided to go down that route for 2 reasons. First of all, if I wanted to win any government work, I had a local with me. Secondly, recruitment and consulting in those days was quite a bit more governed than other aspects. So I was led down that path as well. I'm actually still in business with this guy. I never met him. We've been in business for 12 years now. I pay him a fee every year. Lovely bloke, but
that's the bottom line, then, isn't it? So essentially, you just pay a certain amount of money to a local, say, sign here, mate.
Yeah.
And you just get this fee every year. And he says, yeah. Right then. That's it.
Well, we do it. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And to be honest with you, Mike, though, there's some really good. I've trusted a business called Creative Zone out here. If anyone wants to message me afterwards or interested in opening up in Dubai, I can introduce you. Creative Zone, essentially, they are the middle agents. So there's a lot of paperwork that can be involved in this. There's a lot of things like backward checks that need to be done with you. They basically just make the whole process go a lot quicker. It lasts. You can now set up a business within about 4 to 6 weeks and have a completely registered company out here. So a lot of people actually take an extended holiday out here now and come back with a business license. It was not like that when I set up. I wish it was.
We have had a question come through from Roland, who said that he was told that a regulated business couldn't set up in a free zone as it's slightly regulated.
Yeah, you can. Well, you can. A lot of businesses are set up in free zones now. I have a second license on top of, since opening up the onshore license. I decided to open up a free zone entity that actually says the word recruitment in it. I did that just because at one point we did some coaching and learning and development, so I could use that that license for that. But you can. It depends what free zone license there are absolutely hundreds now out here, and each state. So if you can, Dubai is just one of 7 states within the UAE. Each state now has their own free zone entities as well. If you can get one for literally £1,000 equivalent in the UAE and trade anywhere across the UAE.
And do you need to physically be in, say, Dubai to trade there? Can you set up there and everything, do it as you said, but still be based in London? Can you still do that, or?
That's a really good question, Mike. And the answer is, I think you can make that happen. You need to be in order, so you can set up a license here and operate a business and invoice your business out of here, which obviously has various tax benefits to it. As a founder, what I would recommend you also do is get a visa. Most times you open up a free zone business, you can get up to 6 visas typically in the first round. Sometimes if you pay a little bit less money, you can get 1 or 2. But then you as the founder should get a visa as well. And with that, you can open up a bank account. With that, you become a UAE resident. Visas typically last around a couple of years. What they do say is that if you're going to be out of the country, you have to come back within 6 months. All right. As long as you come back within 6 months, and that could just be for a visit, that could be for a week, could 2 weeks, could go to meet customers, etc. You can have an entity here. Now, obviously, that gives you, if you want to infiltrate the Middle East market from the UK, a great way of doing that is to, is obviously you can say you've got the entity, but you don't necessarily need to put all the investment in staffing up at the beginning. You can run it from the UK, and then once you've got some runway, you can then onboard people, and you've already got the license there.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. And again, I'm guessing that if you're going to try and break into a new market, then again, going back to what we talked about earlier, niche is ideal. It's sensible to be niche, as opposed to we can do everything for everybody. Come here to us. It's certainly pitching your tent on one of the hills.
Absolutely, Mike. And I think, let's be frank. I've just told you that my story was I was one of the first here. That just is not the case anymore. I think I have never seen this region, and I'll talk about the Far East in a minute, but I've never seen the Middle East as popular as it is now. There's lots of people that want to open up here. Dubai, Saudi, Qatar, they have, and Abu Dhabi, they've all had a tremendous PR machine behind them that's really publicized what they're doing. And I think obviously the Gulf states are quite incubated now and isolated in the fact that their economies have been pretty strong. So whilst the rest of the world has been hit by high inflation or recessions or, I suppose just various different sort of issues that have affected them, here's been, done pretty well. For example, and I feel a bit bad talking about this, but the war in Russia-Ukraine that kicked off, Dubai actually had a lot of money come into it, huge amounts of Russian money, huge amounts of Ukrainian money came in here, and it's seen as a safe investment zone. So lots of things, when the world has different problems, and I can say Singapore is a bit like Dubai in that sense, that there are certain places that are seen as real safe areas to invest and put your money because they're considered neutral and they're considered, obviously tax favorable. And Dubai really has profiteered from that.
Okay, Mike, now I know
Okay.
in a second we need to move on to kind of problems in the Far East, but we haven't had this question, which has come through. I don't know what this means, so I'm intrigued. So Yvonne's asked, what about Emiratization?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So Emiratization is the government's basically plan to get more locals employed into business. And there's also in Saudiization. Now, I'll just mention Emiratization first of all. So rightfully, the government has a drive here to get as many Emiratis locals working into the private sector as it possibly can. Typically, locals tended to work for government-related entities, get paid very well. Now there's more and more government pressure for them to move into the private sector. Emiratization, if you're a business of between 20 and 50, you have to have one employed. 50 plus, I can't remember, that it's about 3, I believe. Look, if your business is of those size, yes, you need to hire Emiratis. There are good young Emiratis around there, but the simple fact is most businesses kind of fall into that below 20 that fall into that below 20 radar. And the other thing is there simply won't be the population in the UAE. The UAE has a build it and they will grow philosophy. What I mean by that is they build these amazing structures, they build palm trees into the sea, etc., and they want people to move here. Now, there's not the local population here to sustain the growth that they have. So they're building all these wonderful things so that we may move here, grow their economy, and call this place our home. A lot of other places don't have such a philosophy, but that's because they don't have that's because they have the population and they want the workforce to get to work in the private sector. The UAE just doesn't have that privilege. It simply doesn't have enough people to work to fulfill its ambitions.
Okay, we need to press on. We'll come back to some of those points later, maybe if we have time. The next thing, and I'm going to switch around the next things in your story because it makes sense to do the layered first and then the offshore, because offshore fits into layered, although you did the offshore before the layered. I get that, right? Yeah. But so we'll talk about both of them, which is the deal. So we met, I think, didn't you see a video of me or something? I can't remember now.
I heard a podcast that you did when I was visiting my mother back in the UK, and it was like you were speaking to me, Mike, because you were talking very much about how 360 businesses were yo-yo businesses. You talked about a lot about you were built, setting up or creating your own competitors. And I'd jokingly said to my business partner before I'd left to go and see my mum that I'd created this conveyor belt of competitors that we had in Dubai. So it really sort of sung to me, and I reached out to you after that because it made a lot of sense what you were talking about. And let me just, I think, whilst we're talking about Dubai, I can kind of fuse both things that I was going through my mind, so you can understand first the pressure that I was under in Dubai and why I was feeling need to move to a layered model, and secondly why I then contacted you about it. So in Dubai, it's a very expatriate workforce. So typically people come here to work, earn money, and leave. With that, attrition rates tend to be quite a bit higher. Also, they've made it so incredibly easy to open up a business here now that I was losing staff to people having to go back home because their parents were unwell or their husbands or wives took other jobs. And then I was losing people to simply because it was so easy for them to set up on their own that I was creating this conveyor belt of competitors. And I was losing staff. My business was yo-yoing in Dubai. And I wanted to sort of think about how the brand could be of importance rather than the person be of importance as well. And the factory model really spoke to me because it enabled me to put an emphasis on skill set. And I also come from a communications and creative background where people in advertising companies don't do it. The person that you talk to as a client in an advertising company isn't the strategist and isn't the creative. They don't try and do everything. Whereas in recruitment, I couldn't quite get my head around why you had to speak to the clients, find the candidates, they do all the donkey work, do everything else. I mean, it just felt like you're forever running in a wheel. So the fact that we could layer it out, the fact that we could separate new business, client management, and delivery, and also marketing as well, then that to me made complete sense and spoke to me and spoke to the background that I'd come from. So I immediately went for that, and then I had. It then made complete sense for me from a delivery perspective to look at offshoring everyone and saving money, because one of the other things that has become completely evident to me having a business in the Middle East and Far East is that Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore and Riyadh, where I've got licenses, I mean, other than London and New York, you're talking about the most expensive places in the world to have people, to employ people. It really restricts employment regulations as well. So I thought, right, I'm going to start to offshore as much as I can. So from your layered model, I decided for the delivery section that I was going to offshore that. And I have offshore teams now in Sri Lanka, in Philippines, in South Africa. And we've also got offshored operations team in Chennai in India. So all of those areas plug very well in from a time zone perspective, beautifully into where we've got businesses. Sri Lanka's an hour and a half. Weird that it's got a half hour, isn't it? I don't, many people forget that. Sri Lanka's an hour and a half. Philippines is 4 hours from us, but that's completely the same time zone as Singapore. And then South Africa's 2 hours from where I am in Dubai. So it works beautifully and for a fraction of the cost of what I pay in these really expensive areas.
Now, you set those companies up yourselves, didn't you? You don't go through another third-party offshore business, do you, or do you now?
So we set up service contracts with. So we have service contracts with our offshore team. So once we're aligned and agreed, we then we find a third party in those countries that sets up service contracts with us. We have a business in Sri Lanka. That's another story, maybe for another time. But we do have a business in Sri Lanka that we employ people through there. But for South Africa, in Philippines, and India, we don't.
Okay. All right.
Now, just
Mike,
one quick question as well.
Before we go into our next question, Mike, I think it's now is a good time for our sponsor before we go into our next question. And of course, that sponsor
is our sponsor available?
Then it sponsors us. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
But
yeah, let's do that then, Kirsty. You ready? Yeah, okay. Okay, so very quickly, we've got something new for you this time, right? Profit and Lifestyle Summit. It's actually 2 sessions online. So we're still going to be looking at those key elements that Justin has just talked about, which is strategic business development, 100% important, apex client care, zero cost marketing, because if you're spending money on marketing, chances are you're wasting your money, layered fulfillment, which is very much what we're talking about here, and to become a sticky employer, to reduce attrition rates and get the people that you want. Now, we have this for you. We're taking bookings now. It's the 16th and 17th of July, and it's 2 sessions online on a Zoom call, and it's a workshop. So it's not a webinar, it's a workshop. We'll all be there together. 5 p.m. till 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. £97 plus VAT, exactly the same content that we used to cover in the in-person events, but you can watch this wherever you are on the planet. And if you're interested in that, all you need to do is email summit to mike@flair.co.uk, and I will send you a link where you can read more and register. If you genuinely are interested in taking your business to the next level, to getting confidence and clarity and control of what's going on, then I would recommend stumping up 97 quid in a few hours after work, because you can have that then. Kirsty, back to you.
Nailed it, Mike. Nailed it. Okay, now on to your question, Mike, that you were going to ask Justin.
Yeah, okay. So, the question was really is, do you also have people in that plethora of offshore teams that you have? Do you have people actually on the phones as well? So obviously matching, but do you have outreach and qualification and filtering as well?
Yeah, we do actually. Originally we didn't do that, but we've got a set training program in now. We put the offshore team through, and we also just part of our as part of our interview process now, we decided that we wanted to make sure that they were really good communicators on the phone that came from experience background. The first offshore person that I hired, and I did this when I lived in Singapore during COVID, was a lady called Diane, who's in the Philippines. No, please, no one headhunt her. She was fantastic, and she was head of recruitment for Maersk Shipping, believe it or not. I managed to offer. She'd taken a small career break, and then I found her, and she was fantastic, was better writer than most people I went to school with, to be honest with you. So I thought, wow, what an absolute find she was. And through her, what I've done is I've utilized her referrals to find other people within the business as well. So Diane and I have worked together for quite some time now. She's become a good integral part of our business, and she's become
your outreach and filtering. Is that mostly in the Philippines, or do they mostly emanate from Sri Lanka?
I'm not. I look at Sri Lanka, I look at Philippines for parts of what we do, and I'm now looking at South Africa for much more sort of client-facing work as well. So what I've decided to do now is I'm actually looking at an offshore model for client outreach. So and I've just hired, we just offered a job, and she's onboarding to be our first person to run our new business team offshore. And that's largely going to be driven. We have a marketing function that you very kindly worked with me when we were mentoring together, that we build where we create leads. So our lead generation machine, those leads that we're created, we jump on them from our Dubai office, but we also now going to jump on them from a video perspective as well. So anyone that's basically warm or expresses an interest, we then activate them through a Loom video that they then receive on LinkedIn as well. And they get a personalized message. And then from that personalized message, we then hopefully develop a quicker, faster relationship with them. We find that in the Middle East, being a bit more direct now, and in the Far East to a degree, is being a bit more effective than just sending emails and LinkedIn connections. I think everyone is kind of experiencing, I heard you talk about this, Mike, not that long ago. Everyone is getting spammed with LinkedIn emails right now. So I'm looking as many ways as possible to kind of personalize that approach. And video is the one that we're looking at now to use. And that's what we've got our team. Hopefully we've got the first person there in South Africa now. We can build something around. I believe we're also going to take that into candidate sourcing, that video for more senior, hard to find. There are obviously some roles that we work on. Our business does mid to senior hire, and some of that senior layer, they're not on LinkedIn. I'm sure anyone that does C-level hiring or senior hiring will tell you. So a great way of us trying to find them now is a bit more of a personalized video approach. We've tested it and it's worked a little bit, so I'm prepared to test it.
Yeah, I think we could have a whole show on that, really. We use video quite a bit, as you know, and we encourage our clients to use it because you can get some great video products now that will tell you when someone's watched a video and how long that they've spent watching it. You can then follow up with some confidence. So 100% agree with that. And I love, the whole point of a factory model is that you build a model where bits help other bits. It's not just about somebody putting a bum in a seat. You've got this infrastructure around them, and to use the tech. Tech is an amplifier of what normal people can do. If you give someone a decent piece of tech and teach them how to use it properly, and that's the key, and make sure that they do use it properly, of course, then that will amplify the skills that they have. So average people can deliver outstanding results. Now, just go back to this combination of offshore, the factory and the layered model, this combination of things that we worked on together. Just without, obviously, I'm not asking you to share confidences or anything, that's not appropriate, but can you give us some of the effects that has had on your business since you've gone down that route?
Yeah, I mean, to give you an idea of what my business looked like pre-layered to post-layered. So pre-layered, we were across the Middle East and Asia, we were about 40 people, okay? And we finished 2022, and I was, we had a great year. We took all the staff to Phuket for 3 days, which was just tremendous fun. And looking back on it now, a lot of money, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. Anyway, we came back in the January, and even though we'd had this good year, there was something inside me saying this is not right. And I'd listened to your show. You and I had started speaking then about the layered model, and it just logically everything seemed to make sense. And I was looking around our business and just thinking, the few were paying for the many, which was a clear observation I was making in 360 recruitment, that it wasn't efficient. You were completely reliant on everyone sort of telling you what they were doing. It felt so old-fashioned and clunky is the best way I can describe it. And I just decided to do something quite radical, and I decided to halve the size of the business and put us into that layered model and put all delivery offshore. I decided to invest into marketing, as our marketing and new business as our lead generation machine. And the 360ers that wanted to stay, they did. In fact, interestingly, most decided they wanted to become client managers. So that it sort of naturally fell into its place with the people that I had left.
I remember having that conversation with you, and you were concerned about what people would think. And I remember saying to you, no, it'll take care of itself. It'll be fine, because it always does. People gravitate to the thing that they like the best, don't they? And then
that's right. The bit that we probably, being candid with you, that the bit that we struggled with to identify straight was the new business specialists. I think outside of my business partner, Adam, who's in Hong Kong, and myself, we were really sort of struggling to see many people that we could really, who fell naturally into that new business seat. So we could have kind of took on that mantle ourselves a bit, but we invested a lot into marketing. And, for a business our size, we've got 5 people in marketing. So we really revved that machine up. And what that did was that kicked out a lot more leads, and obviously brands noticed us. Our LinkedIn activity is very high as it is for a business our size. We have 730,000 LinkedIn followers, and I've got about 90, and my business partner's got a lot as well, as do other members of the team. So we ramped that up, and that really had a good impact of generating leads. But the bit also that we really focused in on that we haven't touched on, which I think a lot of recruitment businesses forget, is that we looked after retention. We looked after the clients that we had. We smothered them, and they got a lot more TLC. We went out and saw them a lot more. We just made sure that they were looked after. So rather than just being constantly kicking out new jobs the whole time, we started working on nurturing what we had, and that yielded really good results as well.
The key part of the factory, and I struggle a bit with this really, because for private clients like you, I do basically 3 projects really. I tend to do new business development / marketing. Those 2 link together. I do client care, and I do the conversion from 360 to Layered. The one that nobody seems that interested in is client care. And it's like, I'm saying, no, you should do that. It's the smallest and simplest of the projects. It's easy to do. There's no cost associated with it at all. But it's the one that will generate the biggest revenues. It's like, I might as well, it's like, no, we want this, we want that, and the other. I get it. If you've got no clients, you've got to get some. I understand that. But to me, client care is absolutely crucial, because why would you win it and then let it slip out the window? Yeah, why would you do that? It's amazing.
Yeah, and well, again, coming back from my advertising communications background, I've seen entire businesses built on relationships. You think about Wieden and Kennedy and Nike. They are for people that are in advertising. Wieden and Kennedy literally worked with Nike and came out with the swoosh, and they are joined at the hip. The two made each other, right? So if you look after your clients, the chances are, if they're really good clients, you can build a business around it. So that was something that we really, we focused on a lot.
I think that's a great lesson, because I think to everyone, I think it is important to bed those down, and you've got to move your clients from the client zone to the friend zone, really.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in your back pockets or going on holiday or anything like that, but they've got to be someone that likes you, really. And I did a video this morning, funnily enough, on this very same subject for our breakthrough program members, because again, it's something that's sticking with me. Okay, right. So we've got a little time, and I just wanted to drill down on a couple of things during that journey that I remember. The first one is around marketing, because I'm very keen on marketing, like you, I think, and there aren't many of us around. I'm a salesman that totally gets marketing. I'm not a brilliant marketer in the traditional sense, but I totally see what marketing can do and how it works. Whereas most salespeople, many salespeople, I should say, perhaps, don't value marketing and think that they can do without it. And not many marketers understand in depth how sales works. So to be in this little group that we're in, I'm sure there's more than the 2 of us, is quite a benefit, isn't it, really? Because you totally get it. Just talk about, if you don't mind, how marketing integrated with sales in your business, because it does communications, it does lead gen, it does lots of things. Can you share with us the sort of thing that it did?
So just going through basic stuff. So first of all, from a LinkedIn strategy, kind of, I post every single day, and I make sure that there's a post, there's a personal post, there's a professional post, there's a client related post, and you try and mix it up across those. I want to be seen as the authoritative voice in our subject, but also people know that there's a person behind the post as well, so people can see that I'm a father, I'm a husband, what I get up to in my I'm not afraid to share what I get up to in my daily life. I stopped worrying so much about what people thought about me. Maybe that's an age thing, I don't know, but really I just put it out there. I think a lot of people have imposter syndrome and are afraid about starting because they're worried what people are going to think about them, and you really just need to just give it a crack. And
I remember a conversation about that with you at the time. I remember, because I've got this thing. No, put it out there. It'll be fine. Put it out there. People are too much. Well, what will they say? What will people think? No, it doesn't matter. Just whack it, that'd be fine.
Just whack it out there. I started this really, my own personal stuff during COVID. I thought, well, what else is there? I thought my business was going to collapse as everyone else did. I thought the world was about to end. Well, what am I going to do to save the world? I'll tell you what, I put up a LinkedIn post that will help save the world. And I did that every day and it worked.
Well,
I got all this business.
When we were thinking, when you'd approached me, I thought, I'll have a look at this guy then. And when I researched you, straight to LinkedIn. And you even, I didn't even know you had, I hadn't even spoken to you, I think, the first time you reached out to me. There's this 3-dimensional brand, really, that is Justin Maguire. And we were talking about this earlier because in the UK, there's this thing about branding recruiters, which I think is an astonishingly bad idea, quite frankly. Because if you want to make it even easier for them to leave you and set up on their own, give them their own personal brand. Result. No, don't do that, no. And you said, but it's important. What did you say? Ronaldo has more followers than...
Ronaldo has more followers than every single football team in the Premier League. Yeah, it's a phenomenal amount of influence he's got.
And I think that's okay if Ronaldo owns the business like you do. Absolutely fine. You should do. Go for it. But if it means everybody in your business having a strong personal brand, I know the downsides of that, but you can make the business and build dependencies into people so that they depend upon the business, and you lose less people there. And funnily enough, you get more out of them, weirdly. And they're less of a risk if they go elsewhere, aren't they?
Yeah, agreed. And I think, I identify my job in communications beforehand, and funny enough, it all goes back to that. A lot of my stories go back to it, doesn't it? I put brands in front. I try and make brands essentially spokespeople for an industry. So we had like the AA as a client for quite some time. We wanted them to be the voice of traffic and travel. We would do everything we possibly could to make them the voice of traffic and travel. Right. Well, I thought, how can I take that concept and me be the voice of marketing, communications, and recruitment in the Middle East? And I can do that by just drumming out something interesting and compelling every day and telling them a bit about me. So I use that as a content strategy. And I think what a lot of people in marketing give up on is they expect quick results. Marketing, you need to put the groundwork in, and sometimes it can take up to 6 months to start to get something back. But that compounded effect of actually doing it day in, day out, eventually it's like a hockey stick. You eventually start to get the rewards from it. And that's from taking it from a personal perspective. That's what we do also as a business now. So we are, we've got, and again, we utilize offshore for this. I haven't spoken about my man in Bangladesh, but I'm going to tell you, we get a guy to continually map out our market. We have our top 100 target clients. Our man in Bangladesh then targets all the similar business through it. We try and get three contacts per business. That then comes down to the marketing team. That goes into our sequence. We then market to them through email and LinkedIn campaigns. If they then get some interest from it, we then jump on them with the Loom videos or with the personalized approaches in the Middle East and Asia. And what you taught us to do, and what we do a lot now, is put on events and webinars as well to complement that.
You do that really well, man. You do that really well. I was hoping you might mention events. Your events are really good. If you guys watching this, if you ever see the stuff that they put on LinkedIn, particularly Justin, check it out, man, because it's really good stuff.
And that's it. It's a circle of life approach, isn't it? You've got personal brand from the key person of influence. You've got the automated or the sequenced email and LinkedIn campaigns. You've got the webinars, and you've got the quarterly events. And then we do salary surveys and stuff like that as well. So if you fuse them all together, you've got a marketing strategy, and you start to become the authority in your subject. Yeah. And you don't need to be a big business to do that as well. That's the thing. All these things I'm talking about doing, they sound grandiose, and they're done by a boutique company, so it's all doable.
Yeah, you could get, the thing is, I know Kirsty wants to leap in now very quickly. You can have your own TV station now. It's called YouTube. You can have your own radio station. It's called podcast. You can have your own television. You can have your own newspapers. Whatever you want, you can have it. Just you on your own. A couple of quid every month. So, okay, Kirsty, I'm so sorry.
Okay, so we are coming to the end of our time. So in a second, I'm going to come to Justin. I have one question, Justin, for you that's just come in, and I want your top tip for anybody who's thinking of setting up in the Middle and Far East. But before then, Mike, next time we actually have 2 guests on the show who are talking about Retained, I believe.
We are, yeah, because there's a lot of stuff about Retained going on, and I think some people think that Retained is the same as ordinary contingent search. It's just that you're guaranteed to get the money. They are so different. the way in which you pitch them, the way in which you operate when you get them. So we've got two people coming on. We've got Ward Hampton and we've got Lee D'Souza, both very, very experienced retained people who work throughout the world. And they're coming on to talk to us about the difference between retained and contingent and exclusive as well. They're very different. And I think if you're doing retained and it's not perhaps what you thought it was going to be, or you'd like to do retained, check that out. It's going to be great.
And Air are very good lads as well. Okay, so Justin, before I come to you for your final top tip, I've had a question come in. Someone's asked, Saudi is harder to set up in, I believe. And I know that you have something to say about this.
Yeah, you said it, Yvonne. It is a lot harder, and I wouldn't rush to set up in Saudi right now. I have set up in Saudi. We just completed that. It took us 14 months. It was a very arduous exercise, and it's very expensive. Unless you're really going for government work, like public investment fund, top tier government work, RPOs or big, you have a sniff of a big project. I don't think you need to set up in Saudi. You can do it from the UAE. It's just quite expensive. There's quite a lot of red tape to get through to get there. If you're willing to go through that pain, you've got to be extremely patient. And that's the other thing. It won't happen overnight.
Okay. Before we come to the top tip, we're just going to put this on as well.
Yeah, I did see that. Some people are after Diane for you there, Justin. I bet you regret saying that now, don't you?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, all right. So, Justin, someone is thinking of setting up in the middle of Far East. What would you say your top tip is?
So I touched on it earlier, but I can't recommend enough. Every time we've opened up a business in a different area. So, to give you an example, we opened up in Hong Kong because we were competing against Hong Kong. We were actually losing business to Hong Kong. And I worked out there was a percentile of business we were losing there. So I thought if I can set up there, then I can start making it. And that was anything over 30%. Then once we had Hong Kong opened up, 30% of our revenues were going down to Singapore. That to me was a logical business case. So we worked the Singapore market from Hong Kong, and then we put boots on the ground. We've now opened up in Saudi because we were 60% of our revenue last year, believe it or not, was connected to Saudi. Okay. So there was a clear draw there. So what I would recommend you do in the UK, especially, the time zones work in your favor. You're 3 hours in the summer, 4 hours in the winter. The days of the week are the same in the UAE. They're different in Saudi. Don't forget that. They do Sunday, Thursday there. Work the market. Find international clients. Remember, Middle East is part of EMEA. There's a chance the people you're talking to in the UK might have some sort of control over the Middle East. See if you can set up a Middle East team, first of all, in the UK, work the market. Then once you've got some runway, open up the business, and then you've got a real soft landing when you come in.
I think that's a great top tip. Thank you. And Mike, because I can't leave you out because you get cross at me, what's your top tip for today's show?
I'll be very quick with mine because I know we're overrun a little bit, really.
Yeah.
You have to build dependence into your team. Don't think that you have to build people that don't need you. It's the opposite. And if you've listened just to the last 45 minutes to Justin, he's built a team that people can fit in and a system that people can fit in and operate and add real value to. But it's the system that makes the money. The system can't leave you, or people can. So build a team where average people can deliver outstanding results. And if someone goes, well, good luck and everything, but we'll just get someone else. And I think that's a really key message for anyone, wherever they're scaling, but particularly if you're trying to do it abroad.
Perfect. Okay, now we have overrun a little bit because for those of you who are listening on the podcast instead of watching this on YouTube or on LinkedIn, Mike and I pretty much just sat listening to Justin with our mouth open, nodding hysterically. So I really want to say a great thank you to Justin today for being such a great guest.
It's the Justin Maguire show.
It is.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Justin. I want to say thank you to everybody who's commented
I
and watched
really
us today. We really enjoy it when you do that. And of course, I've got to say thank you to Mike, haven't I? Thanks, Mike.
You don't have to, but thanks anyway.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks when we're talking about retained.